Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Little role play level of concern in about a half an hour. All right, Mark Feinsand of MLB Network will join us. His take on Jordan Romano and where he's at. Jays Yankees tonight. Garrett Cole, we believe, is a lock to win the Cy Young. But, you know, baseball is ahead of the curve when it comes to guys on losing teams still getting major awards. Like Shohei Ohtani was on the Angels last year. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of years ago, or I guess 2 years ago when he won his MVP. Last year, Judge won, and the Yankees did make the playoffs. But this year, Cole's going to probably win the Cy Young unanimously, and the team's
last place.
500. Yeah, and they're going to miss the playoffs. Where it just doesn't
mean.
fly in other sports, like in the NHL, the NBA, football. You have to be on a winning team to qualify for MVP or Offensive Player of the Year.
That a voting thing, though? Like, we always talk about it on our show. It's like, okay, that guy should be up for the MVP, but if they miss the playoffs, not a chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's just us talking. But it seems like that's kind of like an unwritten law, right?
It feels like it's an unwritten rule where, like, I can't recall the last time someone won the Hart or was even nominated for the Hart on a team that was not in the playoffs.
Like, what if McDavid did last year and they don't make the playoffs? You're telling me he doesn't win the Hart?
I'm telling you, I'm not sure he gets nominated.
I would have voted for him, but I vote. But like last year. But Edmonton, there was a stretch there. Remember, like Edmonton had a really tough 2-3 weeks where it was ugly. I think they may have been a couple points out of the playoffs there. Like, it was kind of touch and go, and we'd had that discussion. But McDavid was so clear, head and shoulders above everybody. But then we'd have this conversation going, well, if he doesn't make the playoffs, probably doesn't.
Well, it is silly when you think of it from that standpoint. Like, if they get one more point, he wins the MVP unanimously.
But if he doesn't,
if they get one less, he's not nominated.
Right.
Like, it is kind of ridiculous when you break it down to that extent. It is silly. I think there is something to it when it comes to being an MVP on a really bad team because it's more difficult to justify. It's more difficult to explain, the benefits of being that valuable when the team isn't so good.
Well,
so I think there's a middle ground where if you're just on the border one way or the other, you should be included. But if McDavid gets traded to Chicago, and they're still one of the worst teams in the league, yet he has 155 points.
Right. Here's the thing.
I don't think he'd get it.
I have a soft spot for this, but the guy who got screwed out of that was Jarome Iginla for the Hart because Theodore won it because there was some dopes in Montreal that didn't put Iginla on their ballot.
But Calgary made the playoffs.
I don't know if he did. I believe – I don't know if they made the playoffs that year or not.
I'm trying to remember what
I'd
year
have to go back and look.
That wasn't 04 when they went to the Cup final.
01-02.
01-02.
I don't think they were in the playoffs that year.
Well, maybe maybe that's always been the explanation. It wasn't about Jose Theodore.
Iginla should have won the MVP that year.
I'm assuming the Habs made the playoffs that year.
Yeah, I think didn't Theodore make that save, like the spin around save with his paddle? Like and listen, I'm not trying to take anything away from Theodore. It was more like I think Iginla was like an absolute dominant force that year.
He was. So I believe he won the Rocket. I don't think the Rocket existed at that point, but he had the most goals in the league.
He was unbelievable. And again, I'm biased. Former Calgary Flame, Jarome Iginla, I love. But it upset me to think that I think they missed the playoffs that year.
Yeah, the Grappler's saying they did. So maybe that's always been the explanation, Noodles. It wasn't like an anti-Iginla. It was, hey, your team missed the playoffs. I can't give you my vote.
But he should have been the MVP that year. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, they missed. Calgary was 32, 35, and 12. That's not really even close. They had 79 points.
Well, I don't know what the cutoff line. The cutoff line may have been 82.
Well, within their own division.
The bottom line is that's the explanation. It's just no play.
Yeah.
In the NHL, that's the world that it is, where if it's no playoffs, it's
But
no
I feel
and Montreal made it.
I feel back then it was more the people in Montreal voting going, it's fine. It was the guy, wasn't the guy from Pittsburgh the guy that didn't give McDavid? Wasn't McDavid fifth on his list this year?
There was someone
outside of unanimous, wasn't it?
Someone had him further down. I don't remember.
I think it was a scribe from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But anyways, I can understand if you like somebody have McDavid at 2. Have a Ginla at 2. Don't just leave him off your ballot because you're that petty.
Right. Yeah, the completely off the ballot is different, but I was not aware that Calgary missed the playoffs and missed by a substantial margin.
Well, Ginla got screwed that year.
I guess
Big
so.
time.
I guess, but again, they missed the playoffs, which is kind of wild. And I guess the argument for Theodore was he dragged them into the playoffs because Montreal got in and really wasn't a great team either. They had 87 points.
Wow.
That was Mike Terrien, actually Michel Terrien, because he was in Montreal. When he got to Pittsburgh.
It was Pittsburgh. It was Mike Terrien.
He was Mike.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right. But, baseball's a different beast. Wins and losses, completely irrelevant. Like, if you're a pitcher, it doesn't matter anymore.
Individual sport, though. Baseball.
Yes.
Individual sport. You look at the numbers, that's it. Like, Ohtani was ridiculous.
Yes.
He deserved the MVP.
And what's Cole going to do about the rest of the team not pulling their weight?
Yeah.
And injuries, and Judge being injured, and Giancarlo Stanton.
Looking like Forrest Gump.
Yes.
Yes.
Early.
Yeah, early Forrest Gump.
Not late Gump. They'd love late Gump.
Yeah, when he was flying down the football field, but not with the stilts on and whatever was going on.
You put Alabama running back Forrest Gump in Stanton's body? That's the best player.
That's a winner.
Still.
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem is he doesn't have access to that.
No.
Got to be the slowest guy in baseball.
Him
Has
and Kirk.
to be.
Him and Alejandro Kirk.
I'm telling you, Kirk is faster than Stanton. I think Kirk blows him out of the water. Like, it's not even a photo finish.
I find that hard to believe.
I really
It's an oil painting, those two running.
One's got to finish first, and I think
not
it's
a photo.
Alejandro Kirk in a landslide. Here's Mark Feinsand of MLB.com and MLB Network joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Who would you put your money on in a 40-yard dash, Alejandro Kirk or Giancarlo Stanton?
I never thought I was going to see anybody slower than Jose Molina, who was undoubtedly the slowest player I ever covered. I think Stanton might be giving him a run for his money. I guess that wouldn't be a run; it'd be a walk for his money, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's saying something,
he can't
isn't
run
it?
Anymore.
He can't.
He barely moves.
He can't. Like last night.
It's crazy.
Bichette was in left field, basically. And it wasn't even close.
But, Mark, what are they going to do with him?
Yeah.
Like, are they just going to let that ride out with 4 years left at massive money?
I'm not sure there's anything to do with him. I mean, even if they wanted to trade him, he has a full no-trade clause, and he will determine whether it's a place he wants to go. They would have to eat a lot of money to be able to do something with him. I mean, I think, he's got, 3 or 4 years left on that deal. I mean, he played 99 games this year and hit 24 home runs, so he can still hit the ball out, right? I mean, his years in New York have been productive from a power standpoint. 38 home runs, 35, 31 this year. 24 while missing 50-plus games. But the problem is he can't do anything with DH, and he really clogs up the bases. So it would be hard for me to imagine that they would just eat the money and release him when he can still hit home runs. And it would be hard for me to imagine them being able to trade him without eating a lot of the money and finding a destination that would be amenable to him.
So, last night was a pitching duel. We kind of anticipate that being the case tonight as well with Cole and Barrios on the mound. And we'll get to Cole in just a moment. But the Jays, the reason they lost last night is because they couldn't hit. They mustered up 3 hits. They could not create any offense. But Jordan Romano did come in, tie game in the 9th, gave up hits, gave up runs. And his numbers are bloated recently. He's been dealing with a cracked nail issue. How concerning do you believe it is, the recent performances from Romano, and might it lead to an adjustment in terms of how Schneider handles late-game situations?
I mean, unless the fingernail is something that they identify is the issue and the reason why he has not been effective lately, I just find it hard to believe that they would take him out of the closer role at this point or in the postseason if it's not a physical thing. I mean, he's earned enough trust, over the past few years that, I think as well as Jordan Hicks is pitching, and obviously he's given up a run in September, I just find it hard to believe that they would, throw a new arm in the 9th inning and take that away from Romano, because I just don't know how that, impacts. Can Romano go back to pitch in the 8th? Is he going to be effective? If they think it's a physical thing, well, that's a whole different story. But if they think the fingernail's okay, unless he, does this twice more this week, I it's hard for me to believe that they would lift him out of the closer's role.
Yeah, I mean, for 3 years now, he's been one of the most consistent closers in baseball. And last night was not a save situation. No. I think he's only blown 4 saves all year. So maybe it's a comfort issue. I'm not sure, based on him coming in with a clean sheet. It's a tie ball game as opposed to him closing. But I'm with you. I would assume Romano stays in that closing position. Even Hicks, who's been a lot better recently, and when he's on, is an absolute stud. But as you know, Mark, when he's off, it is a wild card, man. You don't really know what you're getting out of him.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why he was available since the deadline. I don't think the Cardinals saw him as a guy they were going to re-sign, and for him it gave him a chance to go somewhere and go to a contender and get a fresh start. And obviously he's pitched very well for the most part, especially this month. But like I said, it's hard to make a closer change if it's not for a physical reason. In the final week of the season, heading into the playoffs, because it's just, it gets a little tricky. Guys have to adjust to new roles. And, the Jays haven't seen how Hicks necessarily, would handle a big pressure situation in the ninth inning of a save situation, in a huge game. So I just, like I said, if the fingernail is an issue and they believe that that's the reason why Romano's been struggling, then, sort of anything goes. But if they think that physically he's all right, I would imagine he'll still be getting the ball in the ninth.
So, Chapman was activated off the IL last week. He's an elite third baseman. He had a remarkable first month and a half of the season. He did have a hit last night, but his numbers have really fallen off. He is not hitting for power. I believe he's in the longest home run drought of his career, if not the second longest. His OPS is in like the mid-fives. Recently, we're talking the last 25, 30 games. I'm curious what you think his future is going to look like with a relatively weak free agency pool. He plays a premium defensive position, and he plays it at a high level, but his bat has been so weak.
Didn't he start off like a house on fire?
Arguably the best hitter in baseball the first 30 games of the season. And it's just a mess now, Mark. Like, what is your read on what that will look like for Chapman?
Yeah, this is a guy who through 30 games at an 1,100 OPS and, looked like he had sort of recaptured the glory of his Oakland days. Like you said, still a premium glove at third base, and certainly because of that alone, he's going to, he's going to command a pretty penny on the open market. And I think for him, he's falling into free agency at the perfect time because, quite frankly, it's a horrifyingly bad free agent market when it comes to hitting. You've got some, maybe a half dozen to a dozen starting pitchers out there who are going to command plenty of attention. You've got a few relievers, and then you've got the one unicorn with Ohtani, even though he's only going to be limited to half his powers for the next year. But after Ohtani, you're looking at Cody Bellinger, you're looking at Chapman. It's not, Jorge Soler's having a great year this year. He's going to probably opt out and be a free agent, but it's a pretty weak class overall for hitting. So I think Chapman, Scott Boras is going to go out there and look for, $200 million. I'm not sure he's going to get that. But would it surprise me if he found a 9-figure deal somewhere? No, not at all. Given that even though his offensive numbers have not been great this year, since that, first 6 weeks where he was tearing the cover off the ball, this is a guy who, 27 home runs each of the last 2 seasons before this year, 36 home runs a few years ago. He's got the ability to be an impact hitter, to go along with the Gold Glove third base, ability. So I think he's going to get paid pretty nicely this offseason, given that, you're not looking at a free agent market where you have the 5 stud shortstops out there, like we've had the last couple of years.
Mark, speaking of the offseason, the twists and turns of Alec Manoah's season have been outrageous, to be quite honest with you. How do you handicap the chances that he's back in spring training, he's happy, he's healthy, and looks like the guy that pitched in the All-Star game? I think he started the All-Star game. How do you handicap that happening?
You're talking about the guy I picked to win the Cy Young this year. So that didn't go too well for me. I think, he's 25 years old. He's going to be going into his age 26 season next year. I don't think you give up on him. Certainly as uneven and up and down and quite frankly horrendous as this season was for him for the most part, you're only a year removed from being in the All-Star game and having a really nice, really nice start to your career. I find it hard to believe that they're just going to say, all right, let's move on. You can't trade him because you're going to be trading for him, at his low value in terms of pennies on the dollar. There's no reason to trade him coming off of a year where he's, thrown less than 100 innings and has an ERA almost 6. So I think, the Jays will, I'm sure, monitor him in the offseason and work with him in whatever kind of program he needs to be on, because he was too good in 2021 and 2022 to just say, all right, well, he's done now. Certainly it's going to be a tough year for him to bounce back from. I don't think you go into next year thinking, all right, we're relying on him to be one of our top 3 starters. But I think you tell him you're going to come into camp, and compete for a spot in the rotation. And if you look like your old self, it's not even going to be a competition. But obviously you have to kind of challenge him to come back in the spring and show them that he can recapture that form that, he finished 3rd in the Cy Young last year.
Yep.
Say, look, you have that in you. We're only 12 months removed from that being the case. So, let's get back there.
But Mark Feinsand, it's a pretty wild 12 months, man. This time last year, Alec Manoah was challenging Garrett Cole to pass the Audi sign at Yankee Stadium and come have a chat out on the mound. And now Cole's going to be out there tonight. He had a perfect game going through 5 innings last week, and he's going to run away with a Cy Young. And we haven't seen Manoah in a month and a half. It's pretty wild. One thing I find interesting, and we talk about this a lot, but when you actually see it in front of you, in 2019 he had 17 innings pitched, right? It's hurt. 2021 between the majors and AAA, he threw 129 innings. Well, 2022 he jumped to 196 innings. So you're looking at almost a 70 inning jump from 2021 to 2022. Tom Verducci's had numbers on this and research on this for years. When pitchers jump more than 30 innings in a season this early in their career, it can often have a negative effect on them. So you wonder if the 70 inning jump for Manoah from 21 to 22 had some sort of an impact on his arm coming into 23. Maybe that's something the Blue Jays look at, and whether it's scaling back his workload a little bit or trying to figure out, was that one of the reasons why he struggled so badly this year? I think, they're going to look at everything. And that's, when you look at what his last few years have looked like, that's one thing that really jumps out on the page to me. Really appreciate the time. As always, Mark, we'll do it again soon.
You got it, fellas. Take care.
Mark Feinsand of MLB.com and MLB Network joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory. Arriving daily, it's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. I wonder if Garrett Cole is thinking of Alec Manoah.
No, he's not.
No, you don't think so?
Not one bit.
Not at all? Probably right.
No,
Garrett Cole is
probably
like
right.
a seasoned veteran. Yeah, I mean, there was some nonsense last year, but it's so far gone, so far away. He feels like light years away from playing baseball.
Yeah, and Cole's going to be the unanimous Cy Young winner.
Exactly.
Like,
he's been a rock star for many years.
Yes,
too.
he has been.
Jerry Cole,
and he's back on the mound tonight up against Jose Barrios. And Barrios at home has been outstanding, right? All year, Barrios has been outstanding. The number's 7, so I'm leaning towards the under. Feels like a 3-1 game, 3-2 game tonight.
Yeah.
And Hedge is down there, Jennifer Hedger. Oof. She'll join us in about an hour from the park. So take that for what it's worth. Jennifer Hedger will be in the building. We got Darren Dreger still to come. There's a signing out in Calgary and a new captaincy that came with it. We'll tell you about that and role play level of concern. We'll get to that next. All right, we'll get to role play level of concern here in just a moment. The Calgary Flames, we've talked a lot about them in terms of what some prospective free agents were going to do.
Yep.
Right? Elias Lindholm, what's going to happen with him, among others, including Mikael Backlund, who we were discussing, and he's a long-time Calgary Flame.
Yes.
Longest standing player on the team.
When I was there.
Yeah, that's all he's known as the Calgary Flames.
Yep.
And he has signed a 2-year deal at $4.5 million, but the real news is they've given him the captaincy.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
I think it's great.
There.
Yeah, he's been a great. Everybody likes him.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a solid player. I mean, this doesn't really go into the captaincy, but does a ton of community stuff with his wife, I believe. That's what I read and that's what I see. And he just seems like a solid guy who not too long ago, I don't think was too jacked up about what was going on around there and says, I don't know if I want to come back. And he came back, and Jamie, you know more of the situation, and said, let's try to make this work. So good on the Flames.
Well, good on the Flames. Good on him, too. Here's the other thing. He's 34. This deal will kick in when he's 35. You would think at that age, you're fighting for 3-4 years. It's a 2-year extension. Mm-hmm. And he's got game left. Like, he's a really good player. He's a 20-goal scorer, kind of a 50-point guy, 55-point guy, but he plays in a lot of critical situations. They went from McGinley to Giordano to Backlund as far as leaders in that group. Now, Backlund learned, McGinley was there, but McGinley rubbed off on Giordano, and we all know Gio, great leader, great human, all of that. Same situation. So they've been lucky as far as the tree of captaincy there. But just, you always think about a guy, if this was his last contract or something, like going, need that third year, that fourth year where it really jams up the organization sometimes. Mm-hmm. A 2-year extension seems really reasonable for both sides. Like, I think it's a win-win for both, the organization and the player.
Yeah, I think so. I'm more intrigued by the captaincy because it kind of feels like the Adam Lowry situation in Winnipeg, where he's not a superstar.
Right, he's not their top player.
Been there forever, reliable, good veteran, and there's uncertainty around them. Right, like with Winnipeg, they don't know what's going to happen with Scheifele. They don't know what's going to happen with Hellebuck. Beyond that, does that open the door? I don't know. Does Connor, Ehlers, Morrissey, do other guys start looking around and say, what are we doing here because we're in our primes? So we'll go with the guy who loves Winnipeg, only knows Winnipeg.
And he's staying there.
And is staying in Winnipeg.
Right.
And I kind of feel the same thing in Calgary, although I don't know who else would scream captaincy at this point. I guess possibly Lindholm, but I don't know.
Lindholm doesn't have a deal.
No, but that's my point. You're not going to give him the captaincy and then he's going to walk. I mean, it was going to be Tkachuk. Right. We knew that. 2 years ago, it was a lock. If he signed an 8-year deal, they would have announced it a year ago. Matthew Tkachuk is our captain. And that's it. Take it, and you can retire whenever you want to retire as a captain.
And I don't see
that door
Huberdeau
closed when he left. I don't think Huberdeau's the guy. And Nazem's only been there for a year. Kadri's not the guy yet either. He's only been there for a year.
Yeah, I think it's a great choice and a slam dunk for the organization.
Yeah, sure.
And knowing the kid, like knowing Michael, as long as I have, he's a solid human. Same thing with Adam Lowry.
That's what I'm saying.
Solid human.
It doesn't always have to be the superstar.
You're right.
It can be other guys.
That's the thing. The C always doesn't have to be just the best player on the team. A lot of times, it's the glue guy, the person that runs the room behind the scenes. And I think Mikael Backlund is an unbelievable choice. I think Adam Lowry, given Winnipeg's situation, was the right choice there because Adam's a great human, a great leader. I think he's well respected in that room.
Right.
And,
a lot goes into it, Noodles. People just think that it's wearing the C and you got to, talk to the referees if there's an issue on the ice.
Right.
Like, one of the great things about Matt Sundin was he had a pulse of every single guy in the locker room. That's a lot. There's 25 guys roaming around there. And he knew if somebody had something going on or they were pissed off or something at home wasn't right. Or they had an issue. And he always made a point of pulling that guy aside. Like, that's a special quality because in sports, it's a lot about tunnel vision. I got to get home. I got to get my food. I got to get my rest. And you're not really paying attention about the other things that are going on. Yeah. So it's not just a letter on your jersey. There's a lot that goes into being a captain of a pro hockey team. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, man. Guys are human beings. They're not just people you see on TV scoring goals and body checks. There's regular stuff going on with everybody.
Well, look what just happened to the captain in Columbus. Yeah. He's dealing with it, man. Like, Boone Jenner was at the forefront of that because he was the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, it's true.
His explanation also landed heavier, right?
Yeah.
And came with more depth. But then conversely, it was like, well, you're the captain. Shouldn't you know what else is going on?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a big responsibility that comes with it.
That is the big question, and I think Boone Jenner's a great guy from what I know, and he's a great player. He works hard. But people are saying maybe he should have went to the young guys and said, I thought that was fine and cool for team building, which I find to be a complete crock. But what did you guys think of it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So understanding that it was probably happening with every single player.
Yeah.
So there you go, Mike. Every Canadian team has a captain now, I believe. Because there was a lot of transition going on, right? Like
Quinn Hughes just got it.
That's what I'm saying. Quinn Hughes, Now Calgary, Winnipeg, they announced their
Suzuki got it, last year?
Suzuki got it. Kachuk's got it. Obviously, Tavares, McDavid. Everyone's accounted for.
Yeah, 7 teams.
There you go.
And all different types of captains throughout that. You have superstars. You got quality, solid players. And, it just...
Younger players, older players, Canadians, Americans, Europeans. You got it all in there.
Yeah.
It's all good. All right, you guys ready to fire up some role play level of concern?
Yes, let's go.
You can never, ever ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
I do. I really do.
All right, role play level of concern. We know the way this is played. We're all veterans here. We all get it. We are applied a person, a thing, a fan base, and then a situation comes up, and we have to hand out our role play level of concern, which is either a pint on the patio, no concern at all, maybe a 6-pack and a shot or two, mediocre concern. Marty Wildwood.
6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Or the big boy, which is...
You can never, ever ask me to stop drinking.
That is nuclear levels of concern. All right, let's get rocking here. Oh, you're playing the role of New York Jets head coach Robert Saleh.
Be quiet and play it. Sorry. I don't even need more.
Can never, ever ask me to stop drinking.
I think that's accurate.
You can finish your statement, and I'll have a quick comment, but it's nuclear.
Quickly here. What's your level of concern? You're going to lose the locker room if you stick with Zach Wilson at quarterback. That's what it is. It's Nick Cage. Yeah,
it is Nick Cage. You hated the guy's guts last year, and you basically wondered how an organization could butcher another quarterback selection. You get a gift from God, and Aaron Rodgers comes into town, and you never have to watch him play another snap unless a game is out of hand. And what happens? 4 snaps in, you're back to liking that guy. And you can tell how pissed he is when someone says, do you really believe that this guy can do it? Like, is it fair to say you still believe? And he's like, yeah, we do believe.
Yeah,
he doesn't believe 1 second of that.
No, he can't.
No, he doesn't.
He can't.
It's nuclear. He's drinking himself to sleep at night thinking about it.
Yes, he is Nick Cage. He is in a perpetual state of Nick Cage. Yeah, I'm literally watching something on Twitter right now. Chiefs linebacker Willie Gay. This is killing me that the Jets are in primetime this much. You've got to get them off primetime. They play Sunday. I believe it's Sunday night or Monday nighter.
At some point,
you can't flex until later in the season. So we're stuck with the Jets and Chiefs. And Willie Gay, who's the linebacker in Kansas City, was asked about what he's seen from Zach Wilson. He literally starts laughing and then says, it's a team that wants to run the ball, end quote. Like, the rest of the league is like, this guy stinks. Like, it's that bad. Like, guys, and he's trying to contain his laughter. He's not doing it to troll.
Yeah, he's like
he kind of started chuckling, and then he realized, then he tried to give a real answer. Like, it's outrageous. Bob Saleh has some serious issues on his hands.
Big time.
Noodles, you're playing the role of John Tavares. What is your level of concern that your grasp of that second-line center position is starting to slip? It's all you've known.
It's
5 years.
It's not Nick Cage, but it might be Rick Bushwood.
Yeah?
6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Because...
his doppelganger on 2 at Weston.
Yeah.
Continue.
I think it's right in that wheelhouse right there where it's, he has been, and he's been a very good player. Point-of-game guy, very consistent, detail-orientated. You want to talk about class and does and says the right thing. Like, he's been a pillar.
Yep.
But you're older. Nylander down the middle of the ice now.
He might go to the wing, too, right?
I
That's
think
an option.
It might be the Ryan O'Reilly situation where if they want to load up, Nylander goes up the middle and Tavares gets pushed to the wing. So I'm Rick Bushwood, and you might even throw in
Rick Bushwood plus
Yikes. 2 shots of Burt Reynolds.
That's a lot. Rick Bushwood's got a Milwaukee stash.
He does.
Right?
Yeah,
he had one cooking out in Hamilton.
Yeah.
All right. Hamilton may make a run. They could take a run at Milwaukee for
That's
mustache.
True.
Jim Taddy literally is from Hamilton.
Yeah.
All right. I'm playing the role of the Toronto Blue Jays. What is my level of concern that Jordan Romano is leaking oil going into the playoffs? I'm not a pine on the patio.
No,
I can't
you're
be.
not.
I
No.
cannot be. I'm also not Nick Cage. I'm going to say I'm a six-pack and a couple of shots. I'm on the lower end of
Rick Bushwood.
mediocre concern at this point.
Boy, buddy, don't you think if he gasses another one in the near future, you've got an issue on your hands with the position that they're in?
Yes, you do. Because what did you see out of him lately, right? Like, that's generally the way sports works. Yes,
Sure.
baseball is the big picture, the statistics, and the statistics indicate, and they're factual. Romano has been a stud for years. He has been predictable. He has been lights out. He has come in and closed out games. But what have you done for me lately? How you're feeling going into the playoffs matter, especially with any sport, but they always say that about baseball, and they say it with the Jays. Everyone we talk to goes, yeah, they've been inconsistent, but if they get hot, okay, well, that has to go both ways.
Yeah.
If you can't give it if they get hot, they can go on a run thing without saying, well, if they go cold, they're going to fall off individually. And Romano, he's leaking oil. He is absolutely leaking oil at this point, and he is your stud out of the bullpen. Everything revolves around him giving you at least an inning, 3 outs, at times 4, maybe 5 high leverage outs, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
6-pack and a shot or 2. Oh, you're playing the role of Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka, what is your level of concern that you are representing Live Golf this week and you have to play well?
Dude, a glass of water with a lemon. A lemon. Not Rick Bushwood, not a pine in the patio, a glass of water with a lemon. Do you know who you're talking to?
Mm-hmm.
I crush. When I played in the Ryder Cup the last time, I always said to my partners when they were about to hit a shot, hit the shot you would hit in a major. Because that's my mentality. The guy's a winner. Everybody loves him. He's going to be a stud in the Ryder Cup. No questions asked.
Wow.
Well, he's the only guy there representing Liv. You know what like Brandel Chambly and like Iman Lynch. This guy struggles. It'll be because he's on Liv and he's not preparing and there was bad blood. That's coming, man. I guarantee it.
Dude, I think as soon as Monahan
it.
locked up that deal with Piff and the Saudis, everyone was like, well, we're all in this together. You're good enough to play. We don't care anymore. We're not going to bitch about it. Mm-hmm. We're not going to piss and moan that we didn't get the money. It is what it is, and we're moving on.
Well, I'll tell you what. Bryson DeChambeau should be on this team. Like, if that's the case, Bryson's albeit it's on Live, this guy's shooting 58, 61, 63. He just won again in Chicago this weekend. He's one of the hottest golfers in the world.
Dominating.
And he dominated
Unlikable,
Whistling
though.
Straits. Well, exactly.
He's not a team player.
Possibly, but he was there in Wisconsin. He was Whistling Straits, right? Home of Damian Lillard and mustaches.
Dude, he has not been on any kind of consistent form. He was out to lunch months ago, and all of a sudden this guy should be on the team.
But he was great. Which major was he great at? Was it the U.S. Open? I can't remember. He was great at one of them. He did have a very good major. One of the majors, he was in contention. I'm just saying, on Live, he's been good recently, the last month and a half. All right, Nunes, you're playing the role of Connor McDavid. See, Sid came out recently, said he thinks he can hit 170 points. 170. He's not going to put anything past you.
Agreed.
Absurd. What is your level of concern that the bar is too high and you will not be able to replicate last season's play?
I'm concerned about it because I've said this before. If he gets 135 points, which is ridiculous, people are like, off season or whatever. You've set the bar really high. $170 is rich.
He's not putting up 170. 170.
That's 2 points a game.
I don't think you understand what he's going to do to the league this year. This guy's a freak of nature, man. He's a machine. He's a hockey point producing machine. And the Quizmaster was right when he said he's the most evolved player of all time.
That's fine, but at some point you peak statistically. There is no way he surpasses what he did last year.
I'll bet you $5,000.
Take it. I'll bet you. Forget you betting me. I'll bet you, and you could shake on it.
You got to do the shake.
At some point, you tap out statistically. No, and I think last year was the best.
Not this guy.
Yes, this guy. Gretzky did. Lemieux did. They all did.
Okay, Gretzky tapped out at 212. At 212.
215. And he did that when he was 25 years old. 215
Was it
his
212 or 215?
215.
We need clarification.
I looked it up today. I did a Sports Center hit on this like an hour ago. I'm telling you.
It's 215.
He had 92 goals, 212 one year, and the other year, his best ever was 215.
Okay, McDavid's not tapping out yet. The guy got 100 points in 50 games in the bubble.
Dude, at some point, that's enough. Like, listen, I'll grant you that. The bubble year, he had as good a year statistically as he just had.
Right.
So 2 of the last 3, he's been on the same. Like, if they played 82 games that year, he would have had 155 points or something.
Right. 100. You said 170.
That's what
I'm concerned
Sid's
about
saying is
that.
170. Yeah, why am I yelling at him?
You
playing
guys are
Connor
arguing.
McDavid.
By the way,
mine.
Sid, this is what Sid said. This is what Sid said. It wouldn't shock me if he did it.
I know.
He didn't say he's going out
No,
there.
I know that. But it's the gratuitous thing to say, hey, McDavid could do everything. I was going to say this earlier. I'll say it now. Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs last year. Did anyone think he'd hit 63 this year? No.
I don't know.
At some point, you got to be reasonable and say 63 goals, 153 points.
I'm
That's
not there yet.
it.
I'm not there yet with that guy.
I think statistically, he just had the best season of his career.
He did,
absolutely not.
But you're saying, okay, here I'm going to pivot.
You're
this.
Connor. You speak up.
I do have a level of concern, but I'm going to say, so you don't think in the rest of his career he will never get above 150?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think
that's a
it.
donkey comment.
I think
that's
he
a
will.
Donkey non-NHL
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's a donkey comment.
I don't think it's going to be this year.
I don't
but
think he
I think
ever will.
2 years from now he might hit 160.
He's turning 27 this year.
Yeah.
Dude,
If
you know
you-
when
if you
that's
look
when a
up-
guy's prime
No,
starts?
it's not. It's not
That is-
statistically. Dude, I looked it up today.
Oh,
Wayne
you did
Gretzky.
a lot of research today.
Using Wayne Gretzky as an example, right? We're talking the best of the best. And
Yeah.
Gretzky was lapping the field like McDavid is. He scored 92 goals in 212 his third season in the league. He was 21. He had 215 points in his seventh season. He was 25. McDavid's going into his ninth season. He'll be 27. Statistically, Lemieux, the same thing. Ovi, these guys, you have your best statistical years the first 5 to 7 years of your career.
You're right.
Then you round out. Then you load manage. You think about other things. You have different priorities. He's not chasing points the rest of his career.
You're right.
I think the way this guy operates and moves and the conditioning and the speed, I think from 27 to 30 is going to be his best productive
Here's
years.
the only thing I would counter that argument with is that in the Gretzky era, they drank and smoked like it was their job.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a guy who is with nutrition, with sports science,
I
everything.
understand that.
I think that extends the window a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
I think you're right. I think that's reasonable.
Because
I'm not saying he's going to finish with 84 points. Can I
Former
clarify that?
player Frank DeChambeau off the top turnbuckle. Dude, this guy is hitting 150 again in his sleep.
Okay. He snuck over 150 this year with everything going his way.
Dude, I
82
wouldn't surprise
games,
me if he gets
Draisaitl.
175 points.
But
this year.
No,
stop. You're just being a
I'm
not.
175. You know, the year before this, he had 123. He went up 30 points.
he was
He's going to go on
he
top of
still
that
is.
another 20.
No, that's
I know you're not because you're reasonable.
I'm saying that I think in his career he will beat 153.
You think he'll
I'm
top
not
that?
convinced it's this year because I think he's more focused on rounded game, winning, and I don't think he cares about points. I think he cares about wins and winning in the playoffs.
Why would he care about that in 2 years or 3 years?
I think there just might be those years where, for example, Austin Matthews wants to score every night. It's just not going to happen. He hit the
I'm not
60,
sure Austin ever hit 60 again. I don't think that's unreasonable to say I don't think he scores 60 again.
but he might. He might have
might.
a year where it's like he's healthy and everything he touches goes in the net, like we saw 2 years ago. So I'm not betting against these guys. They're so talented. So I'm not betting against McDavid. So
Go ahead.
I'm 6-pack of beer just based on, I don't think he can do it. I don't think he's doing it this year, but I think he's doing it in his career still.
Everyone is
not.
fired up for the NHL, and this guy is hanging on the top turnbuckle of the stall of the bathroom and just having a moose on everything. It's like, come on.
I'm being reasonable.
No.
I think if he scores 55 goals and 140 points, that's amazing.
It is.
And an
It's-
incredible season, and he's still the best player in the world, and he wins the Rocket, and he wins
Yeah.
the Art. But he had 63 and 153. The next closest was Draisaitl, 128 points. Last year
He lapped the field.
was amazing.
Yeah.
At some point,
Right.
you peak as a statistical season. It doesn't mean he's a worse player.
Right. No,
Let me
I
clarify that. I'm not saying he'll be worse. I'm
Yeah.
saying statistically, you chase it early in your career, and
Yeah.
then adjustments are made, and you're like, I'm not going to do that this time.
I agree.
And that's what I'm anticipating will happen.
Although Joe from
You
the Bridge,
anticipate that? I'm not anticipating that happening this year.
Yeah, I know.
3 years from.
Go ahead.
3 years from now. That's when a guy's prime is. That's when his prime is.
Listen, I understand that with sports science and all that kind of stuff. The guy's in remarkable shape, and it is very different than it once was.
well, and the
No
game
question.
continues to change too. That to cater to goal scorers. That's you're seeing scoring going up again because you can't touch a guy, you can't tap on the gloves. Power
you go.
plays, penalty kills, like their power play's not going anywhere for at least 2 years. If
And
Drysdale-
guess what? He stays out there for 2 minutes of it. Best power play in the league last year. It's
Joe
not going
from
to
the
get
Bridge
any worse.
just pointed out one little nugget that might be in the back of his mind.
Uh-oh.
He's 150 points away from 1,000 points in his career.
This season, hitting 1,000.
So that might
Pretty
be
amazing.
that might be a little nugget that
Listen,
it's like he tucks in the back of his
I'm
mind.
rooting for it.
I agree.
I'm not tooting on this. I am.
You are
are
tooting.
tooting.
No, I'm not tooting. I'm rooting for McDavid to put
Give
up
him the horn, JP. Give him the horn.
astronomical statistics. I'd love to see I'd love to see Matthews score 65, McDavid have 200 points.
Yeah.
216. That'd be amazing.
Evander
I'm
Kane's
not saying
getting
I don't
200.
want that.
Didn't Evander Kane say today that he's getting 200 points as a joke?
I think
himself. Did he
yes.
say, or was it McDavid?
Well, because someone asked him. I think someone said, "What do you want?" He's like, "No one ever asked me my statistics. 100 goals, 100 assists."
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Sure, put that up there. That's what he wants. That's what I want. I want to see that happen. But
Wow.
at some
Either way,
point, it stops.
you're right. Gretzky
And-
hit 215. He never got to 217,
No.
220.
At some point,
But-
it just became.
I still believe McDavid has more. I don't know if it's this year or whatever, but I believe at some point he beats 153. I don't know if that's 170.
Dude, you're getting destroyed on this. Everyone is writing me saying this guy's high. Like,
Yeah, because everyone wants to will it
No.
into existence.
no, they're
Yes.
just like it's almost an automatic for anyone with half a brain.
An automatic, he's going to score
Yes, yes,
170
yes.
points. Is
I
that
don't
what
know.
you're saying?
I don't know.
No,
That's-
it's like the 150.
154. That's the number. You think he hits 154 this season or at some point in the next 3 or 4 years?
I would
do.
bet my house on it.
I do, but I don't. I'm not saying it has to be this year. I'm giving a 3-year window still
Okay.
because Drysdale.
I'll be the only guy here that I'm going to say I think he hit his peak statistically
It's
last
Just a
Statistically,
Debbie
not-
Downer outlook to start the season. God. You're just throwing a porta potty on the NHL season.
my job is to
might
give
come
opinions.
in. Struddy might call in tomorrow.
Oh, Strutty will be in the
Get
fetal
him on.
position.
420, please.
Yeah, I'll reverse it and I'll send something. This will really get Strutty going. I think Mitch Marner is a lock to hit 100 points this year. He's never hit
He
100
had
points in his career.
99 last year,
I
so
believe
it's-
he will hit 100.
Yeah,
There
that's,
you go.
Oh, that's so
That's not a
crazy.
positive.
That's not a hard
Whoa.
take.
Mr. Positive.
That's not a hard take.
But everyone's dumping on everything else. I'm Mr. Positive.
Mr. Positive.
Porta potty. The porta potty host.
All right.
Go ahead.
Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Darren Dreger, our TSN Hockey Insider, coming up in about 10 minutes. Jennifer Hedger will join us as well. Hedge coming up from the Rogers Center. Hedge will be down there 6:30. Whenever she's in the building, it doesn't seem to
loss.
go so well. Yeah, it doesn't really go so well,
Well,
but
5 in a row.
she's a professional.
You know
right?
what I can't hear anymore? I can't hear someone bring up 1987.
Mm-hmm.
I think Buck talked about it last night, and he was like, everything was looking great, and they lost 7 in a row.
That's
to
right.
Miss the playoffs.
Meltdown. Complete choke
Let's
job.
never talk about that.
What
and
was the
I
year-
am right.
You just brought it up exactly. We
Yeah, I
bring
didn't
it up.
remember that. What was the year of the Leafs, like 18-wheeler?
Well, they had a couple of 18.
9 games left, 9 points in, finished 9 out.
Yeah, that was, and that's not the famous 18-wheeler. That's an 18-wheeler that no one cares about.
What
Like-
are you talking?
The original 18-wheeler was a
January.
Season, yeah, it was a season prior to that. I think it was.
They were in
When-
first place in November.
They were
in the East.
legitimately in first place, and everyone was like, "Here," and they just fell right off a cliff.
Yeah.
And then the next year, I think, or the year after that, was when they were like comfortably in. comfortably.
Yeah.
And then it was Reimer in Detroit when, he was okay, just okay. And then they just completely tailed off.
Wow.
It was like absurd how many games they lost in the last 12 to 15 games. And they missed by a mile. They were 9 points in, and they missed by 9 points.
Yeah. And I think there was 9 games left.
Yeah, there might have been a little bit more than that. I'm trying to get it out of my head. Look at
Joe
you
from
bringing
the
up
bridge,
negative
get
stuff.
the gory.
You
I
bringing
know
up
that was
negative
my
stuff.
porta potty segment. Joe from the bridge, get the gory details of the actual statistical improbability of that happening.
Why do we want to go down that road?
Because I like to see your face.
Yeah,
I'd like to see your face when you're describing it.
Yeah, it stings. And the mojo, you just don't want those type of vibes, right? Jays, they're in a good spot. We'll see what happens starting tonight. Dregs will join us in the next hour. Jennifer Hedger coming up as well from the Dome. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.